I've never really been much of an accent guy. I don't have the patience to learn, and don't really think that payoff is worth it to me. However, those 5 minutes after finishing Thank Goodness You're Here is the closest I've ever got to becoming that guy. It's an absolute joy that relies on the intimate knowledge of the UK city life up north, yet can thrive all on its own, even divorced from that context. It's funny, charming, and possibly the strangest game I've played this year, yet I haven't seen my partner laugh quite so hard in a long time. If you're in need of a smile and you're anything like me, you have to give Thank Goodness You're Here a try. If you've made it to here, which is about half a minute into the video, and you have some interest in trying the game out, I'd implore you to just go away and play it first, and then come back and finish the video. I really need that watch time. If you haven't left yet, Thank Goodness You're Here is a comedy game where you play some little dude, I guess, who's travelled to the fictional town of Barnsworth in the real region of Yorkshire. Your goal here is to do some sort of task for the mayor. As you might be able to guess from the vagueness around our main character, his motivations and, well, everything, little trivial details like plot and story don't matter to this game. It's too busy hurling you at the next obstacle to care about that. Instead of waiting for the mayor to finish his meeting, you drag your little dude to the left and start exploring sections of the city. This comes in the form of interacting with villagers, helping them complete tasks, fix problems, and solve their trauma in some cases. It's flippant but not heartless. In fact, it has so much sincerity in just how weird it is that its tone feels so utterly engrossing. Veering mildly into that alienating atmosphere of the Wicker Man or Hot Fuzz, it's a disconcerting town that's quite creepy in ways, but only so much that it adds some texture. This sprinkling of almost folk village horror could be jarring, but setting it in the seemingly undying and perpetually unfazed eyes of this little dude makes everything quite light. You have only a few controls in the game, and the one you'll use perhaps the most is the slap button. You can hit things, you can hit pretty much everything, and that's accompanied by a sound or reaction. Much of the exploration of the game is whacking something, waiting for it to react, and then seeing if it does anything the second time. Luckily, it almost always does something the second time. Thank Goodness You're Here's humour is incredibly absurd and dedicated to the bit. At the start of the game, hitting something could be accompanied by a light gag, but by the end, it's an entire orchestra of moving parts, coming together to make some sort of wild and holy concoction of banging pans and screams. Well, not literal screams, but you get the picture. Despite there being almost no trace of a central plot, the game is entirely driven by the mystery of what kind of mischief you will get into, and the way that it's written is surprisingly balanced and thoughtful. Side quests meld into each other until they all combine to make one central chaos. When I say there isn't really a plot, I mean to say you aren't given a narrative to indulge in. However, there are individual plot lines and quite a lot of them, and they can be really good. Like the tension between those who like big pies and those who don't. The development of an invasive flower species that you just can't help but accidentally pollinate. A man who is unlucky enough to have you fall through his chimney multiple times and is subsequently terrified for you to come plummeting down once more. These are very funny, but also interesting in their own right, making the little Yorkshire town a joy to explore. Because the game has so few controls, it never actually explains them to you. This means that when the game starts to get trippy and play with your expectations, you actually have to figure out what to do, how to move, and if you're even supposed to. It's like a puzzle game where the fun of it is being puzzled. With a dialect option I could barely understand, Thank Goodness You're Here doesn't seem to care if you don't understand it, but it's so warm and infectiously funny that it doesn't really matter. There are jokes and gags crammed into every inch of the pavement, walls and faces, to the extent I found myself finding new jokes just looking over my footage for this script. I feel content not getting and knowing everything, and this made me immediately boot up the game to get the secret ending you receive just by sitting and waiting for the mayor to finish up his meeting. Aesthetically, Thank Goodness You're Here is deceptively brilliant, with a fairly simplistic aesthetic that can build into something much more expressive and strange as it goes along. Every character and object is so far removed from realism that they can be warped into weird places, but also clean enough to easily identify. When the game attempts to be a bit more avant-garde, it's so easy to go with it, and this is a testament to that iconic cartoon facade. I feel very similarly about the music. It's rarely more than a muted trumpet and some percussion, but it also changes drastically depending on the scene or location. Footsteps, punches, and jumps have different sounds at different environments, not because it wants to impress, but because it wants to engross. At its best, the sound design melds into mechanics, into the art, and into storylines. Our little yellow main character is weird, but he's only a catalyst for the inherent strangeness of the rest of the town. Without the ability to speak, he's a pretty good self-insert for your own exploration of the game, and the game indulges your absolute worst behaviours as a gamer. He's also an excellent conduit for you to practice your comedic timing. A lot of the humour in the game, outside of sharp wordplay and cheeky in-jokes, is very physical, and having so much freedom in how you pilot Little Yellow Businessman allows you to fine-tune each pratfall and smacky bum-bum to a T. In much of Thank Goodness You're Here, you'll actually tell yourself the jokes, and so you have a whole lot of control when it comes to the delivery of the perfect Three Stooges punchline. At around 2 hours long, Thank Goodness You're Here won't occupy you for too long, but it will occupy your mind. My own partner was going through a bout of pain as we started, and something about it just managed to ease those feelings. Now, as she's starting to feel a little bit better, I've seen her casually drawing the lead in her notebooks while we wait. I've seen her slyly looking around to see if we can buy a plushie of that yellow dude. Little does she know I've been doing the exact same searches to get him for her. It always feels a little strange to say I can't wait to see what a developer makes next, because that's usually an accompaniment to some criticism, softening the blow of something harsh to look at a shining light under the clouds that is the game. However, this isn't true here. The developer, Cole Supper, previously worked on a game called The Good Time Garden before this, and I'm going to sit down and play that one evening too. It still has that iconic art style and feel, yet it feels more subdued and hypnotic. I can't wait to play what Cole Supper does next, because I frankly haven't quite played anything that feels the same as Thank Goodness You're Here. I've not found something that makes me and my partner laugh in that specific way. There are projects out there I find more funny, but the humour in this is warm and weird, self-critical yet loving. It's nostalgic and endearing, but not necessarily adorned with rose-tinted glasses. The gameplay is pretty bare bones, and I could see that annoying some, but as an activity to watch through with someone you love, I can't see many better ways to spend my time. Thank you so much for listening to and watching my thoughts on Thank Goodness You're Here. I really liked it, but I didn't want to go on too much in this review. One, because I ended up going on a tangent about about folk horror that I feel like could be its own thing, but I worry if I extrapolate on that too much, I'll end up making it seem like it's the horror game, which is just not. It's really joyous and fun and funny. Yeah, and I guess I also didn't want to spoil a lot of what I loved about it, like the little things you can do throughout it, the ways that you play with the game to make yourself laugh. Even things like the main character lying down near the start. It took us a while to figure out that you'd click a button and get him up, so there was a good 30 seconds of just cackling because this guy was on the floor looking at the ceiling and just not responding. And it ended up becoming a running bit that we had with each other, where every time he got knocked down, which is a lot, we'd just sort of leave him there for a bit. And there's a particularly good one right after a scene with Butter, where he ends up with two two doors in front of a shop that are automatic, that are just slamming into his head. And it's so good just to sit there and just watch him unfazed, getting whacked in the head over and over again. So it's funny, I said I didn't want to write about that because I didn't want to spoil it, and then I spoiled it here because I'm rambling. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every review on these things. I'd like to cover so much more indie games with my thoughts on them. If you like what you've seen, please do subscribe. It helps me a lot. And if you really liked and you want to share it with someone else, that would really help too. I'm grateful that you're listening still, even though I'm not too sure why I haven't clicked off yet. Well, I'm rambling like wild here. Thank you so much for watching.